Well, every week a new controversy comes out in Nigeria, either allegations of a coup plot or some decampings or even some forms of Nigeria's intervention around the world, including the recent intervention by the government in the coup in Benin Republic. But most of the time, Nigeria has been awash with stories every week, every day of kidnappings and abductions and killings. But yesterday, that is on December 17th, 2025, a new form of controversy came up. It is concerning the tax laws that the federal government decided to tinker with the laws that were passed by the National Assembly or what actually happened. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is the other side. At the plenary session of the House of Representatives on 17th December 2025, the lawmaker from Sokoto State representing Tambuwal Federal Constituency raised a formal constitutional concern in which he alleged that the versions of the tax laws gazetted by the federal government differ from the versions that were debated, voted on, and passed by the National Assembly.
Or breach of privilege has been committed, or referring the matter to the Committee of Ethics and Privileges. Still, if the matter is raised in the Committee of the Whole, the chairman shall leave the chair on the order to report progress. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm here today because my privilege has been breached as a member of this all-important House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, we passed the tax laws on this floor, and Mr. Speaker, I took my time in the last 3 days to look at the gazetted past copy, the vote and proceedings of the House of Representatives, and also went an extra mile to look at the vote and proceedings of the Senate of what was harmonized. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what I passed on this floor is not what is gazetted. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I have all the copies, but I'm coming under privilege because I was here, I gave my vote, and it was counted, and I'm seeing something completely different. So on that note, on this privilege, I will call on Mr. Speaker to graciously look at what was harmonized, what is in the gazetted copy, what was passed in the House and the Senate. You will find out what is before Nigerians, which is being sold to Nigerians at the Ministry of Information, which I personally went to buy the gazetted copies, are not what was passed. So there is no motion here, but Mr. Speaker, I'll be pleading that all the documents should be brought before the Committee of the Whole. The whole members should see what is in the gazetted, should see what they passed on the floor, so that we can make the relevant amendments. Mr. Speaker, this is a breach of the Constitution, this is a breach of our laws, and this should not be taken by this Honourable House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Abdulsamad. Your observation is noted and action will be taken. I assure you that. Thank you.
Honourable Abdulsamad Dasuki said the discrepancies are not just minor corrections or even editorial work that was done, but substantive changes, which according to him include insertions, deletions, modifications, and that these potentially alter legislative intent and content. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honourable Tajuddin Abbas, simply said that a review committee will be set up to examine the issue further. And so Nigerians are waiting to see when the committee will be set up and what evidence will be brought by the Honourable Abdulsamad Dasuki. It will be recalled that from last year, 2024, to this year, 2025, the National Assembly had been debating what the government calls comprehensive tax reform package, which were finally enacted in June this year. And these laws are supposed to take effect from January 1, 2026. These laws include the Nigerian Tax Act 2025, Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025. This act repeals the Federal Inland Revenue Act and substitutes it with a Nigerian Revenue Service Act. And then we have the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act. According to the government, these 4 statutes were meant to harmonize and modernize Nigerian tax architecture by replacing multiple legacy laws and creating a unified tax administration for Nigeria, as well as, of course, the revenue collection. The Nigerian Revenue Service Act abolishes the Federal Revenue Service Act. Now, the Nigerian Revenue Service Act is 2025 purports to collect taxes from all Nigerians in all parts of Nigeria and for all tiers of government, meaning that this revenue service is potentially set to collect local government tax, state government tax, as well as the federal government tax. And so for the first time in Nigeria's history, or for the first time since we started talking about devolving political power, this government, which is populated by people who have been fighting, spent over 20 years fighting for what they call physical federalism, or physical federalism, or federalism that allows states to have powers, has taken over the powers of the states, powers of the local governments in collecting their taxes. All the taxes will potentially be collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service, a first in Nigeria's political history. What really are the issues that the members of the National Assembly are complaining about? According to the lawmaker, Honourable Dasuki, provisions were inserted after parliamentary passage, and these were not brought before Parliament to debate and agree on. Clauses were also removed from the gazetted copies, and texts were modified substantially, such that the meaning or intent of the original provisions may have been changed. This, according to him, go beyond mere editorial or clerical fixes. However, the fact also must be pointed out that even if there were editorial fixes, grammatical errors, or even spelling mistakes, arguably, it is my contention that even the clerks of the National Assembly or the federal government or any agency whatsoever, including the president, do not have the power to effect those corrections. Those corrections are supposed to be effected by the legislature. Whoever had noted those corrections or editorial mistakes ought to have called the attention of the National Assembly for these bills to go back to the legislatures. This is because, as we do know, the change of a word, the change of a comma or a full stop in any sentence may dramatically alter the meaning of that sentence. And altering the meaning of that sentence ought to be the duty of the legislature and not of any editorial handler. To be clear, Nigerians will recall that the 1979 election that was disputed by Chief Obafemi Awolowo was decided on the basis of the interpretations of the words and o. So the placement of and o in a sentence, according to the Supreme Court, could change the meaning. And so my contention is that the staff of the presidency, the staff of the National Assembly lack the power, the constitutional power, to effect those changes. Their role is limited to calling the attention of the legislature to those corrections or mistakes so that the National Assembly will sit down and the two chambers would effect the corrections before those bills will be forwarded for assent. And doing that after assent, even if they were innocently done, in my own opinion, vitiate or nullify those laws, meaning that those laws, if indeed the allegations that were raised by Abdulsamad Dasuki are correct, are null and void and are not acts of the National Assembly. The second complaint of the Honourable Abdulsamad Dasuki is that some provisions adopted by the National Assembly concerning reporting, oversight, and accountability mechanisms were deleted in the gazetted texts. And of course, like I did say, even if they were there in error, the presidency did not have the power to delete them. And all the power that he has is limited to vetoing the bills, as the case may be. The third complaint is that the gazetted versions appear to grant coercive powers, such as the powers of arrest, garnishment without court orders, compulsory foreign currency computations, and security deposits for tax appeals that were not reflected in the bills as passed. Lawmakers argue that such additions expand executive power beyond what the National Assembly had approved. Now, what are the implications of this? Nigerians will be waiting for the Honourable Speaker to set up the committee to investigate and compare the laws as passed and the ones that are gazetted. And my argument is that if indeed there are any discrepancies in the one that is gazetted, the gazetted bill, to the extent of its inconsistency with the ones that was passed by the National Assembly, is null and void. If you take that together with the fact that the president is supposed to sign a copy that was approved by the National Assembly, and if the copy that the president signed is the one that was gazetted, it simply means that the president has vetoed the bill, the 4 bills. And if the president has vetoed the 4 bills, it simply means that in the eyes of the law, the government cannot implement these tax laws in 2026. Well, what is your take about these controversies? I want to know what you think about what I've just said. Can any person outside the National Assembly, including the leadership of the National Assembly, amend, delete, or add to anything that has been passed on the floor of the chambers? The answer for me is no. If the answer is no, and the investigations being done by the House comes out to prove Honourable Abdulsamad Dasuki right, it means that the implementation of the new tax law will be illegal. Again, my name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.